Man, have we been fortunate to have Tim Brando on with us quite a bit the last couple of 2.5 years, and also quite a bit during the college football season. Fox Sports joins us. He did Fresno State Boise on the blue field, and obviously enjoyed the broadcast. And a heck of a game, a nice win for Fresno State. Tim, thank you for your time with Paul and Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Did the College Football Playoff Committee get it right?
Yeah, they did, and I'm surprised, shocked, actually. And I'm not shocked at some of the reaction today from those in mainstream media that don't care nor give a rat's patoot about college football, that somehow are up in arms because Alabama's not there. It's actually quite funny. But they didn't deserve to be there. They shouldn't have been there. And I'm glad they're not there, because the pure playoff privilege circumstances that I have been talking about for a long, long time, I think finally, people kind of began to understand what we were discussing here. Because when your best wins are against 4-loss teams, and that's what Alabama's wins were, then, sorry, that's not good enough. When you're bragging about losses because they were both on the road and you lost on the final play of the game, if that's all you got. And Nick Saban made a fool out of himself, begging because he thought he'd be favored in every game in Vegas. Why do we even have a season then, Coach? I mean, why do we even have a season? I mean, that would just mean if Alabama got in on the basis of being favored in every game, they would have won 15 national championships all under Nick, because he's favored in every game. I think the only time he hasn't been favored was against Georgia last year. So it's laughable, absolutely laughable. And for so many fans and really media members that don't care about college football to have problems with that, then I laugh at it. I really do. But I'm proud of what the committee did. I think they had a different reaction to what was going on, because they now know that we're headed to 12 teams and their credibility is at stake. Because when we go to 12, the conversation about who's in and who's out is going to be even more meticulous in a lot of ways. So they did the right thing this time and did not allow pure playoff privilege or brand bias to get in the way they normally have.
Tim, I wonder if having Gene Taylor in that room for TCU in that particular case, where they have to talk about it. Now, I know we had him on the show a few weeks ago, and he says, look, you got to put all your biases at the door. But if I'm sitting at a table with the Kansas State AD, and then TCU comes up and then say that they just lost to your team, that's not impressive, and have to look that guy in the eye, I might not be able to back that up very well if I was an Alabama proponent in that moment.
Well, that's been true with this for quite some time. It's another one of the reasons why I don't think current administrators need to be on this committee. Whatever the committee is, I think we need to remove the veil of impropriety or potential impropriety from the room. This isn't like the NCAA tournament selection committee where we're picking at larges and 35, 36, whatever the number is now with the 68 teams. We need to have more objectivity, and we need to have greater vetting of these guys. Your point is a good one. And there have been many times when I think it played into the hands of more powerful schools in the bigger conferences. It certainly did not hurt that he was on that committee. I'm not going to say that it didn't, but trust me, if that's the case, more than just a few times, people like Gene Smith of Ohio State have been on that committee. Okay. And Gene's a reputable guy, but you're going to tell me that doesn't affect the potential of Ohio State moving from number 7 or 6, whatever it was in 2014, to 4, and TCU dropped from 3 to 6. I mean, every year that kind of stuff could happen. I'm glad you pointed it out, because there's a modicum of truth to it, no doubt about it. I mean, these are human beings. We're all affected in some manner by where we're from and what football we're seeing the most, that kind of thing. So it's a hard thing to do. I do believe this, though. When we go to 12 or we go to 16, once we get to that point, it's going to be about competition, not about selection. And I think that's ultimately what we all want it to be. We want it to be about competition rather than selection. And when you have that many in, the cause for concern about, a bias is lessened by a great degree.
Tim, what did you think of a second straight year with a dramatic, goal line stand to win a Big 12 championship? And obviously that brought TCU's perfect season to a close, but thankfully they still make the playoffs. So I guess a two-part question. Your thoughts on the Big 12 title outcome, but also how important do you think it is for the conference that TCU got in and it's not Oklahoma being the representative of the brand once again?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge that someone like TCU out of a power conference, yes, but someone that's sort of new to the party. We're talking about a team that a few years ago, on the same weekend LSU was playing Alabama in the game of the century, was playing Utah in the Mountain West Conference, okay? And both teams were in the top 10. So think about that, where those two programs have come from. Utah just won the Pac-12, beating SC a second time. And here's TCU playing for a chance to win their league in an unbeaten season, and they're rejected by a team that they had beaten earlier, come from 18 down in a game Spencer and I had in mid-season, in mid-October, but also a team that lost to Tulane too, okay?
Yeah.
The Green Wave, who will be playing in the Cotton Bowl, beat Kansas State, who was a top 10 program, and just knocked off TCU, who's going to be playing for a national championship. So that's about parity. That's about the evolution of the college game. It's about names that maybe are not synonymous with the sport being as much a part of the sport as those that do have big brand names. This is forward-thinking understanding of where we are in the college game, and I think it's I tip my cap to all those teams. And I put Tulane, I don't know that it's out yet, but I put Tulane in my top 10. I thought they deserved to be ranked 10th. And in the future, a team like Tulane is going to be one whale of a story in the field of 12 or the field of 16.
Yeah, and how much would, if there was 12, and I know this for a couple of years, would Utah and Kansas State come into play with how they're playing right now?
Well, sure. As a matter of fact, Utah would be they're 8th, so they'd be getting a bye the opening week with 3 losses. Think about that. A 3-loss team with a bye because they're ranked 8th. So 5, 6, 7, and 8 are at home. 9, 10, 11, and 12 go on the road. Somebody takes issue with that, I would point out, Utah played a road game at Florida they didn't have to play week 1. They also beat USC twice. Did they earn the right to say that they're in the top 8? Absolutely they did. Mm-hmm. So, again, I go back to, you got to understand and follow the game. We got people involved that don't follow the game, that have a voice and a mouthpiece, and people react to what they hear, okay? And I'll say it one more time to my friends at the Four Letter Network. Stephen A. Smith has no business talking about college football. None.
Yep.
Okay, he does not. You're doing yourself a disservice allowing him to sway the minds of many. It's you're appealing to the lowest common denominator, to fans that don't watch college football. Just because Alabama's Alabama doesn't mean they get in. Too bad. Your only wins were against 4-loss teams. Period. End of story.
Yeah, Tim, I think that, if I was in charge of ESPN and I had a guy on my network telling people not to watch a game that was on my network, I might have a talk with him about what we tell people to do.
Well, it's pretty. Listen, I like Stephen A. I do. I think his value to ESPN is incredible. A lot of times his opinions are the same as mine on a number of issues. But I think when it's about discussing college football and just raising your voice and talking about Alabama, that's all a part of the entertainment value that he's supposed to bring. But if it's just entertainment and it's got no substance, and college football, Stephen A. is very passionate, and that's one of the things I love about him. Simultaneously, fake passion, a college football fan will weed out in a heartbeat. Okay, that's fake passion, because you're not keeping up with what's going on if you have no understanding of how strong TCU's season was, You have no understanding of how competitive TCU has been and continues to be, and what they accomplished through the course of their regular season. That's just, I'm sorry, they had more impressive wins on their resume than Alabama even thought about it.
Tim, you were calling the Mountain West Championship game. Fresno State and Jeff Tedford get the big win over Boise State. Your thoughts on what you saw, and nice win by the Bulldogs.
Jake Hayner's a great quarterback, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with him in his future. You know, those two teams were picked at the very top of the league, but both were really struggling early. They had 3 wins between them halfway through the season. Okay, and Boise State was they were both 1-4 after 5 weeks. Now think about that. Okay, Tedford lost his quarterback just as he thought he had him. They carted him off at the Coliseum in USC. He misses 4 games. They go 2-2 in those 4 games, and somehow, after having his leg shattered, he worked his way back. We were talking to him on a Zoom, fellas, getting ready for this game in a hyperbaric facility. He was literally in a tube talking to us on the phone as we were getting ready. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. But a tough, strong-minded young man, and a kid that they thought would be at Washington, and then he came back because Tedford was cleared with his heart issues from COVID that he experienced a couple of years ago, and he came back to finish off his season. Boise State was decimated, and then they hired, I think Dirk did it on his own. He just offered his services, and Dirk Cutter came back to run the offense for Andy Avalos, and they simplified their offense, allowed a redshirt freshman to play the position, and they just started, running the football and allowing their offensive line, which is pretty good, to take over, and then they got on a streak. So it was a great game. I'd never been on the blue field. It was an experience getting there, but once I got there, I had a blast. Boise's a wonderful town, and it was kind of cool when I think back to my, the time when I began pounding the pavement about expansion. It was largely because of Boise State and what Chris Peterson had been doing. And they had like 2 really near misses. One field goal that went wide right during the BCS period that allowed Nevada to beat them, and it cost them a chance to play for it all. And I think that year was the year they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. So they truly were the fly in the ointment, the first of the flies in the ointment that I used to talk about on CBS all those years. And in a lot of ways, think about it, fellas. Boise State, Utah, and TCU were the 3 programs that elevated post-BCS. And 2 of the 3 have already gone to power conferences, and now 1 of the 3 is playing in the college football playoff. And Boise's still looking for a bigger home. I think it's the potential of Fresno State and Boise State being in another league within the next 12 months is very good.
Yeah, did you have a chance to visit much with Jeremiah Dickey? He's Mac Rhodes' right-hand man while you were there?
I did not, unfortunately. Okay. I did get a chance to talk with Terry Toomey, the AD at Fresno State, and so did Spencer. Spencer went to school with him in Tulsa when they were growing up together, or maybe they went to the same school but at different times. I'm trying to remember now. But I'm telling you right now, these athletic directors in the Mountain West and a couple in a few other leagues are in major conversations right now with Yormark and Kliavkoff. You can look for a lot of realignment coming up. I think the Deion Sanders hiring at Colorado should send you a strong message about the direction of their program changing. I believe there's a very good chance that they may be coming the Big 12's way.
And rumor has it, a rumor coming down the pipeline, is Deion might be on the verge of hiring Kent State head coach Sean Lewis to be his offensive coordinator, which would be a home run hire for Deion. And your general thoughts on prime time in Boulder, Tim. I didn't see the match, but it looks like Colorado was, perhaps the only big school that really went after him this cycle. He takes the opportunity, and man, it's just amazing just what that hire's already done in a few short hours, really.
Yeah. At first I had a similar thought because of the political aspects of that university and how they've governed their football program really since the Gary Barnett era ended. And honestly, I had some consternation about it. But the more I thought about it and saw the welcome wagon that was waiting for him in Boulder, and then watching him through Barstool and his social media locations, his accounts, I thought, my God, he's already on his way. He's taken flight. And, Deion's been breaking banners for years, fellas. I mean, 35 years ago on the original game day, he had signed a contract with George Steinbrenner, and we were about to do a Florida State game, and he did a little video tease for the start of our show because he was the first player to be a millionaire playing college football as an amateur. And he had a Trans Am that looked a lot like Burt Reynolds' Trans Am in Smokey and the Bandit. And he's driving up the driveway with the camera rolling, and he peeks out from his T-tops that he has open and says, "Hey, Tim Brando, how you like me now?" I thought, who besides him? He learned. I think he and Bosworth, without question, he and Brian were the two guys that understood marketing before any other student athletes ever understood it. And he's just carried through with it. He's done a lot of good. He did a hell of a lot of good for the HBCUs. He transformed Jackson State, and I think they're going to be still very well off in the aftermath of Deion's exit. And I think you're going to see more and more young coaches of color come through the HBCUs to make their way in Division I college football. And so he's still blazing trails. Okay. I mean, it's clear he's blazing trails. And even though I had that first reaction that you did, after about 6 to 8 hours, I thought, this is Deion. He's going to kick butt and take names. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And it may be signaling, maybe under the smoke of the prime time part of the hire, underneath that smoke is a change of direction with regard to the university's view of how important college football is. And that's a great thing for fans and alumni of Colorado who have been just chomping at the bit to be relevant again.
Yes.
Other than that 1 year, I think in 2015 or 16 with McCartney, he won 10 games that year early, faded towards the end. They've had no consistency there, and he's going to bring all kinds of it to them, I think.
Tim, I know that we are honored to have a Heisman vote. We can't discuss our vote, but they will release the finalists here in about 20 minutes. What do you think Max Duggan showed, and do you feel like for those who just kind of blew him off that they might have a different perspective on him?
Yeah, without a doubt. If he wins the game, if he doesn't get stopped short by the length of a football, or TCU doesn't. I wish he had the ball.
Yeah.
Let me say that.
Yeah.
TCU was stopped short. Max Duggan did all he could to get him to that point. Then I think it would be his. I really do. That would be my opinion, even as someone that is a voter but isn't supposed to say who he's voting for. Max is the most incredible story of this college football season, particularly given what he's gone through to be in a position to quarterback a team in the college football playoff. So, yeah, and I think that the kid Stetson Bennett from Georgia has been really, really overlooked in many, many ways. If you haven't watched Georgia play, then you missed out on really what Stetson's season was all about, because he was really good. He followed up what was an incredible sort of rags to riches walk-on story as a national champion. Everybody in Georgia, everybody wanted him gone. They really didn't want him there. And all he's done is guide him right back to the precipice of winning 2 national titles back-to-back years. So I think that those guys figure prominently into the process. And historically, I've always used my third-place vote for someone I thought should just be invited to New York, and I didn't have a chance to win it. But it would be a crime if they were not invited. And so, those two guys in my mind are guys that really, really, deserve to be there. The Caleb Williams thing is going to be interesting because I know everybody sort of has handed it to him going into the conference championship weekend. And I'm not sure that that feature that my colleagues did on Fox before the Pac-12 game, getting his nails done, is going to work in his favor or not. He probably still will win it, but if he doesn't, he will rue the day that he decided to write those letters on his fingernails.
Tim, which bowl game do you have? Do you know yet?
Oh, I don't have any.
Oh.
Fox only has the Holiday Bowl, so
Okay.
I'm off the bat. I'm done. I'm my football season is over. I wish we had some more bowls, but we don't. You know, ESPN owns about 12 or 13 of them, I think. And, you know, we're not in the playoff structure. So maybe in a few years that'll change. But, you know, our conference championship games for the most part are the end of our college football seasons. I'm going to take a couple of weeks off, get ready for the family to come by the Chateau, and then I'll leave on the 19th, I think, and go to the Big East to do some hoops at UConn and at Villanova with Rath. And then I'll take another couple of weeks off after Christmas and get back at it in earnest in January. I think January 7th I get started, and it's, you know, on the road to the Big East tournament. I'll be doing Big Ten and Big East games from January 7th on in the winter.
So be honest. I know you'd like to have a game tonight, much less this weekend or a bowl game. Is there a little bit of? It's not. What? How would you describe that feeling of not having that battering ram? Although it's a wonderful career and a lot of fun and all that, is there a little bit? What's the word you would say over the next couple of weeks now that you don't have a game?
You know, I maybe 20 years ago, David, I might have felt that way. You know, I get to ask that question a lot because I no longer do the NCAA tournament with CBS. And haven't since I went to Fox. And truthfully, you know, it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing the eight games and 4 games in one day with 8 teams in the first round of the NCAAs. That's a lot to do. That's a lot. And if I were doing the first 2 weeks and I had an opportunity to punch a ticket for a team into the Final Four, I would miss it. But if you're only doing the first week, those games are like a blur. You know, you do 4 in one day, then you sleep for a day and you try to catch up, and then you do 2 more games and your tournament is over. It seems like it's forgotten very quickly because once the Sweet 16 starts, you know, people have forgotten what happened in the first 2 rounds. In college football, I think it's somewhat similar from the standpoint of having would I love to be doing more bowl games? Sure, I would. When I was at CBS, I did the Fiesta Bowl in '98 when K-State beat Syracuse. Michael Bishop, Donovan McNabb were playing. It was New Year's Eve in the desert. It was awesome. I do miss doing, you know, some bowl games. That would be a lot of fun. But I don't know that unless I was given the first 2 weeks, not just the first week of the NCAAs, I really don't miss it. I enjoy watching it. I'm a fan of both, obviously. But until Fox gets into the bowl business, you know, I'm just going to enjoy it. You know, I'm also to the point now where I really love being with my grandkids during the holidays, and I don't think about it very much.
Yeah.
Maybe if I were 20, 25 years younger, it would be something that was really missing. But I feel blessed to be doing what I'm doing and having the time to be with family during the holidays is more of a, you know, something to treasure as it were, as opposed to, gosh, I wish I were somewhere else. I can't imagine wanting to be anywhere other than with my kids and my grandkids during the holidays. So that's a tough one, but, you know, we'll see what the future holds moving forward. College football landscape is ever changing. It would appear that maybe the company I work for is going to get with its portfolio involved in more games and maybe some postseason. And if they do, I'm hopeful that I'll have an assignment for one of those.
Tim, great job again with the game with Fresno State and Boise State, and we have appreciated your time throughout the college season. It's become a great part of what we do, and the chat room and the text line and the people with feedback is great for this segment, so we appreciate you again.
Well, thank you, David. I mean, that means a lot to me. It really does. And listen, as I said at the first of the year, I thought Baylor was really going to be TCU, as it turned out. And I thought TCU would, if Baylor didn't finish 4th, I thought the chances of someone from the Big 12 would, and heck, TCU wound up number 3. And I don't care what Boo Corrigan said, there's no question in my mind that they were going to keep Ohio State and Michigan apart in the first round, okay? Because if they meet again, and it's for the national title, we're talking about maybe the biggest rating in the history of college football for national TV. But I think TCU's got a great chance in this matchup with Michigan. They could really shock the world here. When you look back at the numbers that Purdue got for the entire game against that Michigan defense, TCU is better than Purdue. Okay, just remember that as you get ready for that matchup.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Tim Brando, Fox Sports with us, has been on with us maybe 8 to 12 times during the football season and also before that. Just to appreciate his time. Now, we have David Hellman around